Did you know that most organizations are misusing their podcasts? That's right. Leaders are going about producing a podcast or setting one up, or maybe they're thinking about it, but they're thinking about it all wrong, or at least on a very limited basis. I'll explain. My name is Ben Fanning, and I'm host of the Lead the Team podcast, where we're in the top 2% of all podcasts globally. And we're also producing, launching, strategizing about podcasts for companies. And we take care of those podcasts from A to Z. And these are not just any podcast, these are profitable podcasts. And for today's focus, I'm going to tell you about in this brief video on how you can use a podcast, not just to generate revenue, not just to create a pipeline of sales opportunities, but also how to rally your troops. Is there anything more important than that? And boost their morale so they're aligned to the focus of your leadership mission. This is a new way to think about podcasting that leaders are missing the boat on. After today's video, you're going to have these 5 strategies. So if you're thinking about launching a podcast or you already have one, you're going to benefit from this video today. And let's dive in. I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to walk you through these slides here. How to rally your troops and boost your morale with a podcast. Again, 5 strategies coming your way right now. If you want to scan this QR code, it'll take you actually to our podcast, Lead the Team, again in the top 2%, but you're going to see how we're putting this to use. So you're going to find in case studies we offer are going to be in the podcast that we're producing, but also in our own podcasts. We're not just a company that talks about podcast theory and what could be. We're actually walking the talk in the podcast world each and every day. We're staying ahead of the game. So number 1 is to share and spread the message of your leaders. Look, you may be using outdated methods like email and text and video and town halls to communicate. And yes, all those can be effective to communicate with your employees. But in this podcast example, this company realized, you know what, we've got 3,000 employees coast to coast, and it's hard to stay in touch with them, including a huge amount of store employees and truck drivers who don't check their email because they're driving or they're interacting with guests. They don't have time to sit there and check their email and tune in to a town hall because time is money. And so what we did was we helped them strategize and conceptualize a podcast so they would be in the ear of their drivers and their store workers and their leaders that are constantly traveling to be in their ear. And it was so powerful when they would hear from them on a weekly basis. Although you don't have to do it weekly, or you can do it even more if you'd like. There's some variability there depending on your business objectives, but this is just acknowledge that this is a great way to reach them because they can listen and they're listening to something, right? They're listening to music or they're listening to maybe your competition's podcast. Why not yours? So again, share and spread the message of your leaders. Here is a testimonial from the president of that organization. And I'll just quickly read it to you here on the power of a company podcast. I think this says it all. Creating a company podcast proved to be an excellent way for us to connect to our 3,000 employees across the country, many who work in our stores and our trucks, and they don't live on email or meet up in the office. It's an effective medium, and they gave us a little plug. Thank you for that. That Ben is a one-stop shop expert in making this happen from start to finish. There's just one case study, but it's powerful. And you can think about this for your organization. Number 2 is to be the news. And if anything, this is a higher calling. Y'all, the news is bad because bad news gets clicks. And so if you imagine your employees looking at this bad news every day, it decreases and it really can weigh on their morale. And the virtual water cooler or the real life water cooler is full of negative conversations due to the news a lot of times. And it's important to think about how your company can have a higher calling to be the positive news, right? To tell them what's going on great inside the organization, what's working, and to start to sway the naysayers into a more positive mindset. This increases your retention rates. It just boosts morale and productivity and focus on the company mission. Here's one called Engineering Leadership. And this is focusing on, for this organization, of course, engineering and the positive leaders there. And it allows you ultimately to be in the social media feed of your employees. They're checking their social media. Well, the question is, are you in that social media? And is it something that they can share with their family and coworkers? So when they come home and they say, hey, what went well today? Or what's been going on inside your company, instead of focusing on all the problems, maybe they start to listen to this, they have to focus on more positive aspects. Number 3 is to strengthen your network. We learned during the pandemic that a company does not achieve success alone. Of course, it's based on the hard work and focus and contribution of your teams and your employees, but also on your supply chain, right? The people that are supporting you. Because if you can't get the stuff to sell, or you have people supporting your operations that are third parties, you need to be tying them into what's going on. And you can depend on the leaders of that other company to communicate effectively to those employees. But why not get a podcast that you can direct specifically to them? Because you're only as strong as your supply chain and your customers. Here's an example of a healthcare company. Actually, on our show, over just under 28,000 impressions on LinkedIn alone. And this is him speaking directly, okay, about mindfulness and stress. And you can't listen to this interview with him and not appreciate his perspective as a leader. And this resonated really well with the broader supply chain, including their customers and clients. Number 4, increase your influence with decision makers. What a great way to build trust and highlight your expertise with your customers and potential customers. Then with a podcast, this one, again, on our show, over 10,000 impressions. And you can just begin to understand the power of this, because when they hear your leadership message, they're going to trust you more, right? They're going to see the human side of you. They're going to understand your leadership perspective. You're not just going to be another number. In this world we live in, where people want to see the human side, being another number is a dangerous place to be, because it commoditizes you, it commoditizes your company and your vision. And so by leveraging a podcast, you can break down these barriers and avoid these issues. And number 5, one of the coolest parts about a podcast and rallying your troops is it's an asset you can use forever and ever. And you can reuse it multiple ways. You can even use it to supplement your internal leadership training. So your HR leaders that are thinking about the leadership programs for the future, a podcast with your leaders on those different subject matter experts can be a positive way to do that. In fact, we're doing that now, where we're working with HR leaders to fill the training gap, because maybe they've got a leadership program, but they don't have woven into the perspective of their senior leaders. Who better to talk about leadership than your own leaders? So yes, you may have an external provider for your leadership training, which we provide to companies. But what we're doing now is we're using podcasting to weave in that expertise from the company and really complete the leadership learning loop. So that's one asset that you can use to help rally the troops and boost morale. The second piece of this is to leverage video and YouTube. And these are some of the examples here. So you'll see, we'll start in the upper left-hand quadrant. This is a leader that came on our show. We've been able to leverage her podcast to help her rank number 1 for getting employees to buy in, which is one of her key leadership messages. So any leader looks that up on YouTube or Google, they're going to see the highlights from her interview, and they're going to be able to refer to her as an expert in there and be identified as a leader to work for. Because, man, really thinking about getting employees to buy in, what a powerful thing to communicate. In the lower left-hand quadrant here, this video is already ranking highly for employee engagement. This is music to the ears of any HR leader and cultural and talent executive, because employee engagement is a key thing. So this is a podcast that's ranking highly from the CEO. And then the lower right-hand third, the one here where I'm sort of comically wearing a mask, ranks for Make My Office Safer. Now, this is big simply because they're a security-based company. Okay, it's a podcast, Make My Office Safer, ranking number 1 is pretty big for a security company, because when people are Googling that, they're going to see the thought leadership of the specific CEO. And by the way, this is the only one that we did with them, right? The only podcast one. He's not paying for this. All of this is organic search. That's the power of a podcast. As you wind this up, make sure that your podcast, by the way, it's not all about your subject matter expertise. An interview-based show where you're building collaboration is also an essential ingredient. And I'm going to talk more about that in future videos, but that's a positive way to help make your employees the star of the show, or make other leaders the star of the show. And notice how that can help your message and the power of your podcast and profitability increase. Last piece, leaders introduce new conversations to their company. That's how innovation, creativity, and quantum leap progress happens. You can take this video, you can start to share it and kickstart that conversation. Or if you want a more advanced way to do it that'll accelerate it faster, you can scan this QR code or click on the link below this video and schedule a 20-minute call directly with me. And in that call, I'll quickly walk you through our 5 steps to a profitable podcast, and also what you can expect, what kind of results you can expect from a podcast for your company. If you already have one, we'll talk about where you can take it. Or if you don't have one yet, we'll talk about where it could potentially go, because that's going to help drive the conversation inside your organization. So enjoy that video, check it out, rewind it, review any of the parts where you need to go back and check it out, or you want to understand more on. Set that consultation up with me, or if you're not quite ready for that, stick around for the next video.